Yo, what's going down, everybody? It is straight out of Boston here, aka the King of Boston, and today we're back with the final edition of our MLB season preview podcasts. And as always, I'm joined by Ryan. What's up, Ryan?
What's going on, guys?
And today we're going to be going over like our world. It's a little bit different. We're going to go over playoff predictions, World Series predictions, and then get into some awards that we think are going to be won by certain players and stuff. And maybe we'll talk about like breakout players and stuff like that. Kind of be like a roundup and of kind of like a almost like a summary type thing. I don't know. You'll see. We'll kind of go by ear. But anyway, we're gonna start out with our playoff predictions. So we're gonna go division by division and start out with one league and go to the other. Talk about which teams are gonna make the playoffs and then go through our brackets. So do you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So this is going to be slightly different than probably what we predicted in our podcast originally because, like, for me, I originally picked the Yankees to win the AL East, but after they've been decimated by injuries, I honestly don't think they're going to even make the playoffs this year, quite frankly. So I'm going to say the Toronto Blue Jays take the AL East. I'll stick with the Detroit Tigers in the AL Central and the Los Angeles Angels in the AL West. For my wildcard teams, I think I'm going to have to go with the Oakland A's and the Baltimore Orioles. So that's going to set up an Oakland A's versus Baltimore Orioles playoff game for the wild card. And I'll take the A's in that. Be a bit of a homer, but I just think that, I don't know, that'll be a pretty interesting matchup. It'll be probably a good pitching matchup. I'd expect a guy like Miguel Gonzalez or even Dylan Bundy, if he's up at that point, to be pitching for the Orioles. And you'd probably see Brett Anderson or Tommy Malone or one of those guys out of the A's. So that'd be a pretty good pitching matchup, but I think the A's would take that. I'd say that game would be in Oakland. I think Oakland will finish with a better record than Baltimore, and I think that home field advantage will really help Oakland in that playoff game because when they do fill the stands there, it gets pretty loud. Then I think moving on to the playoffs, I think the LA Angels will have the best record in the AL, so they'll go up against the Oakland A's in the ALDS. That'll be a really good matchup. Obviously, division matchups are actually because there's all the old rule that you can't have division matchups in the first round. So I'm not sure if that's still around with the new wildcard system. I imagine it still is actually. So I think that you would end up with the Angels facing off against the team with the third worst record, which would probably be the Toronto Blue Jays, in my opinion. So I guess you'd have Angels Blue Jays. That'd be a very good matchup. I think that the Angels would take that, though, probably in 4 or 5 games. I think that their pitching would be too much. A lot of people think their pitching has too many questions, but I really like their pitching this year. I think Vargas and Hansen are solid to go along with Wilson and Weaver. Weaver. So then the other matchup would be the Detroit Tigers and the Oakland A's, a rematch of last year's ALDS, and I think the Tigers would take that handily. As much as I'd like the A's to continue and move on to the ALCS, I think that the Tigers are going to be really good this year. I think they're going to be second year together, a bit better chemistry, bit better start, and I think they're just going to roll into the playoffs and roll through the Oakland A's probably in 3 or 4 games. So that's set up an LA Angels versus Detroit Tigers ALCS, and I'll take the LA Angels once again in that. They would have the home field advantage, and I think that their pitching is probably slightly better than the Detroit Tigers. Maybe not starting rotation-wise, but if you include the bullpens, I would take the Angels in that any day. I think the Tigers' bullpen is still a very big question. So I'll take the Angels in that, and then I would obviously have the Angels moving on to the World Series. So I'll move on to the NL. Out of the NL, I'll take the Washington Nationals out of the NL East, the Cincinnati Reds in the NL Central, and the Los Angeles Dodgers out of the NL West. For my wild cards, I'm going to have the Atlanta Braves taking the first wild card spot, and I'm going to end up with the San Francisco Giants taking the second wild card spot. So I think that actually results in almost the same playoffs as last year, except I replaced the Cardinals with the Dodgers. Not in the same seedings, but the same teams. And for my wild card game, I would have the Giants versus the Braves. Now, that'd be a very good matchup. That would more than likely be a matchup of two very good pitchers, both with deep pitching rotations. And I think the Giants would actually take that because I do think that they have the playoff experience from the year before. And I would think that they're going to either throw out Bumgarner, Kane, or Vogelsong. So that'll be really tough to beat in a one-game situation like that. So I'll take the Giants in that. That is going to lead to a Washington Nationals versus San Francisco Giants. NLDS, I do have the Nationals taking the best record in the NL this year. And I'll take the Nationals in that. I think the Nationals with Strasburg this year are going to be almost unstoppable. I just think that pitching is too much. Their offense is solid. Their bullpen is good. Might need another lefty, as we mentioned before, but I think it's good enough for now. The Giants don't have really any powerful left-handed bats outside of maybe Brandon Belt in that lineup. If you look at most of their guys, Posey, Pence, Sandoval's a switch hitter, but really at that point, you're kind of picking, if you want to face them left-handed or right-handed. So they don't really have any powerful left-handed bats. So I think that the Nationals would survive that series, and I think they would move on to face the Cincinnati Reds, who I think would be the Dodgers handily. I really like the Reds this year. I think it's a very good team. Hopefully they are moving Chapman back to the bullpen, I've heard, which is good for them. So I think that's they're better off that way. And I think that would ultimately push them past the LA Dodgers. So that would set up a Nationals versus Reds NLCS. And I'll take the Nationals in that. I think the Nationals are really going to do well this year. I just like their pitching too much. Cueto, Latos, very good at the top end for the Reds. But I think that if you get to Leak and Bailey and who am I forgetting something? I don't know if I'm forgetting someone. But I think against Leak, but did I say Cueto? Cueto,
Leak, Latos, Arroyo.
Arroyo. Oh, I forgot Arroyo. Yes, I do think, though, when you get to the back end of that Reds rotation, it does get a little bit weak. And I think that's ultimately where the Nationals would be able to take a few games. Because I think if you had Latos and Cueto going in games 1 and 2 in Washington, that I think that maybe the Reds take one of those games. But I think if you get Arroyo and Leak in going back to Cincinnati, I think the Nationals would take 1 or even 2 of those games if they throw out Herron and Zimmerman in those games. So I think the Nationals would take that series in probably 6 or 7 games. That'd be a very good series, but I'll take the Nationals. And I'm going to take the Washington Nationals to beat the LA Angels in the World Series, probably in another 5 or 6 game set. I think that the Nationals pitching ultimately is just going to be too much. I'm in love with the Nationals pitching this year. Zimmerman is so underrated. If Herron, you're not even going to be asking much out of him if he can be your 3rd or 4th starter. And that bullpen is solid. 7, 8, 9, Storin, Clippard, Soriano. I see that becoming a 6-inning ball game at the point in the playoffs. I think those guys will be rock solid. Their lineup will do enough. I think Bryce Harper's ready for a breakout year. Adam LaRoche, hopefully he can continue his, what he did in the second half last year. Worth will easily replace Mike Morse. And, I think it's going to be a Nationals World Series championship for them this year. So what do you think? You want to get into your predictions?
Yep. So, all right, I'm gonna start off with the NL, and winning my divisions, I have the Nationals winning the NL East, I have the Reds winning the NL Central, and the Diamondbacks winning the NL West. My 2 wildcard teams I have this year are Braves versus Giants. So I'm gonna get into that. So Braves versus Giants, it's a pretty interesting matchup because the Braves, they have pretty much solid pitching all around, and they have a really nice lineup with the Upton brothers, who have been looking really good this spring. But I think the Giants in the postseason, they're really dangerous. So I'm going to take the Giants over the Braves. This will probably be an upset because I think the Braves will probably finish maybe 5 or 6 games ahead of the Giants. In the wild card, I could possibly have the Cardinals being over the Giants, but I think the Cardinals have suffered too many injuries so far this season with losing Furcal and who they lose, Carpenter or Wainwright.
Yeah, lost Carpenter for the year.
I always get those two mixed up. But yeah, and they're also not going to have Loesch as they just signed him with the Brewers today, so I don't think that pitch is going to be as good as it will. I guess the Cardinals are going to have Rosenthal and a whole bunch of rookies in their lineup or in their pitcher rotation this year, so that'll be kind of interesting. So whether or not those guys overachieve in their first year, I have no idea. But like I said, in this match, I'm going to take the Giants. Now, I think the top overall seed in the playoffs will be the Nationals, so I'm going to pick the Giants versus Nationals, and NLDS, the Reds versus the Diamondbacks. So in the Giants versus Nationals, I think the Nationals have really, really good pitching this year. And I think the Giants, just because they're so good in the postseason, they're going to push the Nationals to 5 games in this series. But like you said, I think the Nationals have too much of a good starting rotation. They have a very good offense, and they have an extremely good bullpen. So I'll take the Nationals in 5, and then the Reds versus Diamondbacks. Despite how much I like the Diamondbacks, I feel like the Reds are just so good this year. I think they're going to be really good, and they're going to advance in 5 games. They have a really good pitcher rotation, just like the Nationals, and they have a nice offense with Votto and Chu and all those guys in the outfield. So I think that's going to be a pretty good team this year. So moving on to the NLCS, we have Reds versus Nationals, and I have the Nationals advancing in 6 games. And I feel like the Nationals are just destined to get the World Series this year. I think Strasburg, Zimmerman, and Gio are just going to carry them this year, and I think they're gonna prevail over the Cincinnati Reds this year. So that's why I have the Nationals in my World Series this year. Now over on the AL, we have I have Los Angeles with the top overall seed winning that division. I have New York winning the AL East still. That's up for debate now, I guess. I'm so sick. And then in the AL Central, I have Detroit. I think that's such a weak division this year. So my wild card, I have Toronto versus Texas, and I think Toronto is going to prevail again. I think the Rangers are gonna start realizing that they're running out of gas, and I just think Toronto with that lineup this year, they're gonna be really dangerous in the playoffs. So I'm gonna have Toronto moving on to face the Angels, and then we have Yankees versus Detroit. So going on that matchup, we have Yankees versus Detroit. And I think with these injuries, if they're still hurting the Yankees by this time at the end of the season, I think Detroit's gonna handle them in 4 games. I think if you throw Verlander out there against the Yankees, that's 1 win, and then you have Scherzer, that's another win. So I think it's going to be pretty quick and painless for Detroit to move on. And then Toronto versus Los Angeles. I have Los Angeles sweeping them in 3 games. I think Los Angeles is just too good this year. I see no reason why they're not going to make the World Series. So going off of that, I have Detroit versus Los Angeles. And despite Detroit having a really nice, middle of the lineup and a really nice pitcher rotation, I think the bullpen is going to cost them in this series, especially if they don't have a well-defined closer by this point. So I think Los Angeles is going to handle them in 5 games. And in my World Series, I have Los Angeles versus Washington, just like you. And I think Washington's going to beat this in 7 games. I think it'll be a really good matchup. I think these teams are so evenly matched up. I think they match up really well together. So you have a really dangerous lineup in Los Angeles, and then you have a really equally dangerous. I don't know as equally dangerous, but right above that level, or right about that level with Washington. But I think the overall pitching of Washington is just going to be too good for Los Angeles this year. So I see no reason why the Nationals can't win this World Series. So I'm going to pick them in 7 games.
All right. Yeah, I think that if that Nationals-Angels matchup does happen, that'll be such an interesting matchup because it's, arguably the Angels have maybe the best lineup in baseball, certainly the best, 3, like not 1, 2, 3 combo, but certainly have the best group of 3 hitters in baseball with Hamilton, Pujols, and Trout, and you're going up against probably the best starting rotation in baseball in the Washington Nationals. That'd be a really interesting matchup to see. So we both have the Nationals winning the World Series. It's hard to pick these kind of things in March, but based off of what the teams look like on paper and how they've been doing in spring training and just how sort of individual guys have been doing, I think it's safe to say that these two teams have very good chances at making the World Series. So, do you want to move on to some awards that we think are gonna?
Yeah.
All right. So I guess we'll start out with we'll go MVP, Rookie of the Year, Cy Young. I don't think we have to go into Silver Sluggers and Gold Gloves. I guess
I have Manager of the Year as well.
Oh yeah, we'll do
comeback. I have Cy Young, MVP, breakout players, and overrated.
All right, that sounds good. So we'll start out with the MVP. I'll go first on this. I'll say my AL and NL MVPs, and then I'll let you have your word. But anyway, I'll start out. I think the AL MVP this year is going to be Mike Trout. I think Mike Trout is only going to go up from here. I don't see him coming back to reality with a sophomore slump. I think he has the potential at almost 35 to 40 home runs. I can see pitchers starting to figure out how to pitch to him a little bit, but I think if that average dips down to 310, 320, and he hits 35 to 40 home runs, and the Angels are as good as everyone thinks they're going to be, even though he is surrounded with a bunch of good players, I still think that Mike Trout, at such a young age, he has so much to learn. He has so much he can do. I think that this year maybe people will, or at least the voters will lean more towards his, fielding a little bit, allow that to account for some sort of, just something in terms of being able to vote for him or not. So I really think that Mike Trout's going to have a great year, and I think he'll not easily, but I think he'll win the MVP this year. As for the NL, I think I'm going to give the NL MVP to, I haven't really thought about this too much, but I think I'll give to maybe. I almost don't want to pick Bryce Harper, but I really feel like Bryce Harper is going to have a hell of a year this year. He definitely didn't have the best year, like at least not a year that everyone thought he was going to have last year. He only hit 270, but from what he's done this spring and added on to what obviously the potential of this guy has, only being 20 years old. He has a high motor. He's, even in the middle of August, if they're 10 games up in the division, he's still going to give a shit. He's just one of those type of guys. So I think that overall is going to lead him to having a breakout year. And I think that we're going to see 2 players of the next generation win MVPs this year in Mike Trout and Bryce Harper. What do you think?
All right, so for my AL MVP, for each one of these awards, I put 2 players that I think can win it. So over in the AL, I have Adam Jones or Jose Bautista. I think Jose Bautista, with this new lineup that he's going to be around, he's going to benefit a lot from this, especially with this nice pitching of them, and then yeah, he has a ton of guys that he's going to be able to hit in. Like he's going to have Jose Reyes, and he's going to have Rasmus in front of him, and all these guys. So he's going to have a really, really easy time in getting some RBIs this year. So I think easily Jose Bautista will hit like 45 home runs and maybe like 115, 120 RBIs. So I think that's why he can get the MVP. I also think Adam Jones can get the MVP over from Baltimore just because if the Orioles, if everyone is picking them to make the wild card, I feel like Adam Jones will be the one to carry them again. So I think if he's gonna carry them, then he's gonna have a really, really nice season. So I mean this Orioles ball club is so underrated. I feel, but I still don't want to pick them for the playoffs. So over in the NL, I have Matt Kemp or Joey Votto. I think Matt Kemp in this really tough division, he's gonna step up this year. I think he's got a really nice lineup again around him with Adrian Gonzalez and all those other guys. So and if he's healthy this year, I think he's gonna have a really nice year. And over in the NL Central, I have over the NL Central, also another MVP, Joey Votto. I think he's gonna have a really nice year over with the Reds again. I think if he stays healthy, just like Batista, if they both stay healthy, they can both win the MVPs from their respective leagues. So.
All right. So move on to Cy Young.
Yep. I'll go first with this one. So,
all right.
Over in the NL, I have Steven Strasburg or Johnny Cueto. I think Johnny Cueto easily could have won it last year, but I think he finished second or third in the MVP or Cy Young voting. I can't remember,
sure.
But yeah, I think he was up there. So I think Johnny Cueto can get it this year. And then if Steven Strasburg actually pitches this whole season, his numbers from last year were so good at only 160 innings. So if he goes like 200 innings this year, I don't see why the voters wouldn't pick him for Cy Young, especially if he has such a nice year. So I'm going to take Steven Strasburg or Johnny Cueto on that one. And then over in the AL, I have Chris Sale or King Felix. Now, Chris Sale, last year was his rookie season or his first full season, I believe. So if he puts up the numbers just like last year, he was so dominant last year. I think he finished fourth in the Cy Young voting last year. So I think Chris Sale or, like I said, King Felix, I think he's just such a good pitcher, and that perfect game just pretty much showed how much of a good pitcher he is. And I just want to say one thing over in the NL, you can probably add Clayton Kershaw, and also in the AL, you can probably add Justin Verlander. Those guys are always around every single year. So, but I'm gonna pick Steven Strasburg or King Felix though.
Stealing my picks out here. All right, so I'll start out with the AL. So who I think is gonna win it is Justin Verlander. I think he's going to beat up on that weak division. I think that he's going to have a lot of run support this year. I think that he can easily get to 20 wins. He still had a very good year last year at a 2.64 ERA. The Tigers just didn't do as well as everyone thought they were going to, and I think some people sort of overlooked him. I'm not sure what he finished in the voting, but I know David Price did win it. David Price did win 20 games. He did have a 2.56 ERA, so he certainly had a statistically better year. But I think that, with the Tigers doing so well, combined with Verlander's consistency, I think that he can probably win. I think this would be a second Cy Young award since he did win it in 2011. But my dark horse is Chris Sale. I really think that Chris Sale, once again, playing in a very weak division, if he plays, I think he got shut down towards the end of last year, and he certainly tailed off. His numbers were a little bit worse for the last part of his year just because it was his first kind of 162-game season. It was his first season when he was making, 20 to 30 starts. So I think that if he can get that ERA down into the 260s, 250s even, I think he has the potential to, and he can build off of that 17-win total from last year. I think that Chris Sale has a very good chance at winning the Cy Young Award this year. He's kind of my dark horse because I don't think the White Sox are going to be that good this year, so I think people will kind of overlook him in the voting, but I do think that Chris Sale is a very good shot. My NL Cy Young Award winner is going to be Clayton Kershaw. Same thing as Verlander. Quietly, not really quietly, but still he had one of his better seasons last year. He's only 24 years old, so he still has a lot of room to grow potentially. Probably him and David Price, two of the best left-handed pitchers in baseball. Probably the two best left-handed pitchers in baseball. I just think Kershaw's going to get a ton of run support this year. I think he could get that win total up towards the 18 to 20 total mark if he can stay healthy. And I just really have high hopes for Clayton Kershaw this year. Just, he'll have some pressure relieved with him with Zach Greinke in the rotation now. And just with that offense, I think that he really has a great chance of winning it this year. But I do give my dark horse to excuse me. I give my dark horse to Johnny Cueto. Like you said, he easily could have won it last year. He went 19-9. He had a 2.78 ERA. I don't know why people are kind of overestimating him. He didn't even make the All-Star game last year, which I think is just ridiculous. But he quietly has been one of the better pitchers in baseball over the last 3 to 4 years. And I just think that Johnny Cueto, once again playing on a team that's going to be very good this year, probably going to be the best pitcher on that team. As long as Latos, kind of continues what he did last year, and Chapman stays in the bullpen, then I think Cueto is easily the best pitcher on that team, and I think he has definitely Cy Young potential this year. He's more my dark horse. I'd say he's going to finish second or third, but I would give it to Clayton Kershaw for this award.
All right. So which award do you want to go to next?
What were your? Was the you had the most improved or whatever or comeback player of the year?
Comeback player.
And then you had breakout players and overrated.
Overrated and manager and rookie of the year.
Okay, so let's do manager, rookie, and then comeback.
All right.
All right, I'll go first on the manager of the year. So this is the type of award that always goes to managers who kind of manage teams that go under the radar a little bit and then kind of end up with good seasons, it just kind of breakout seasons in a way. So I think that the manager of the year for the AL is going to go to Ned Yost of the Kansas City Royals. I'm starting to get on the Royals bandwagon a little bit. I think that they have the potential to win 85 to 90 games, and I think if they can get around that 85 win mark, be in contention for the playoffs throughout the year, I don't see many other teams that I can see breaking out like the Royals can this year. So I think Ned Yost is going to take in the AL. As for the NL, similar situation. Which team is gonna overachieve a little bit, maybe do a little bit better than everyone thinks they are. I think that the Brewers have the chance to do this because just with Sean Markham there, or not Sean Markham, excuse me, Sean Markham left, but with Kyle Loesch there, I think now that if he can kind of be just a little bit of what he was last year, I think that they have the potential to even contend for the playoffs this year. But I think ultimately it's going to go to Kirk Gibson of the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think the Diamondbacks are ripe for a great year this year. They have great pitching. Gibson has been acclaimed as one of the better managers in baseball over the last few years. So people have certainly heard of the guy. They know what he can do. They know he can manage. And I think that just with the potential that the Diamondbacks have, and with Kirk Gibson, at the helm as the manager, I think that Kirk Gibson can win Manager of the Year this year for the NL.
All right, so for my NL Manager of the Year, just like you, I have Kirk Gibson. I think this Diamondbacks team is going to overachieve this year, and especially with that dangerous pitching rotation, they have a really nice lineup. I think if Kirk Gibson can steer them to the playoffs, I think there's no reason why he won't get it. And then over in the AL, I have two possible picks. I have Buck Showalter from the Orioles or Terry Francona from the Indians. And I think you can also throw Ned Yost in there, just like you said, but if the Indians can somehow get to 85 or 90 wins, just like you said, I think Francona will possibly get it, especially if he somehow fixes this pitching staff of the Indians that is complete garbage. And then if you take Buck Showalter, if he can take the Orioles to the playoffs once again, I think he could have won it last year. I think last year was Bob Melvin from the
Yeah,
A's,
it was
right?
Melvin.
So
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that he only won it just because he beat the Rangers in the division. So I mean, both of them last year should have got it, but if the Orioles make the playoffs again this year, I think Buck Showalter should get it.
All right, so should we move on to Rookie of the Year?
Yep, Rookie of the Year.
You can go first on this one.
All right, so I had Tyler Skaggs, but Tyler Skaggs was optioned to AAA, so I really don't know of any prominent rookies.
But I mean, that could be a situation where he gets called up in 20 days or whatever, and they save the year.
I was thinking the same thing.
But with the similar, and this is one of my picks for Rookie of the Year, has the same problem. He could be the type of player that just might not get much playing time this year due to how deep that Diamondbacks rotation is.
Yeah, so I'm just going to stick with Tyler Skaggs in case he does get called up, but I don't think he will, depending on if someone gets injured or if someone doesn't perform very well, then I think he would get called up, but if he doesn't get called up, I really don't have anyone else to back him up, but I'm going to pick Tyler Skaggs in the NL. And over in the AL, I have Will Myers, who I think he should be, or he is going to be starting the year off in AAA. But just like Harper and Trout were last year, he's probably going to get called up.
Yeah, I almost guarantee that's a situation of a guy who's going to spend 20 days in the minors. The Rays have been known historically to do that with a lot of their guys. So
yeah, I'm going to pick from the AL. I'm going to pick Will Myers. Will Myers. So. I can't talk right now. I'm so sick.
All right, so I'll start with the AL because this is one of the more interesting races for me. Obviously I'm big into young guys, prospects, stuff like that, as is Ryan. I think that if Jurickson Profar can find at bats this year, I think he's the real deal. He's the number one rated prospect in baseball. If someone goes down, Profar is going to be there to fill in. He can play second base. They could probably even try him out at third base if Adrian Beltre goes down. But I imagine if Beltre goes down, they bring up Mike Holt. But I just think if Profar can find at bats, He is such a good hitter. He can hit for power. He can hit for contact. Um, I just really like Jurickson profile, but I think that he's gonna struggle to find at bats this year, and I think that ultimately, I think Will Myers is a very good candidate. I also have Manny Machado on my kind of list, but I think
I
that
don't like rookie.
oh really? Yeah, I don't know if he has his rookie status still because he did have a lot of at bats last year. But I think the guy, this is a dark horse, this is me being a bit of a homer, but I really think Jackie Bradley Jr. out of the Red Sox organization has a great shot at winning it this year. He's likely going to either start the year with the big league club, or he's going to be sent down to the minors for 20 days, and they'll call him up right after that. Or he'll be sent down at some point, maybe when Ortiz comes back. What a lot of people are thinking is they're going to move Johnny Gomes to DH, put Bradley in left field, or if they trade Ellsbury at the deadline, or, Ellsbury goes down like he does every year, Bradley's going to be right there to take his spot. And I think Bradley's hitting over 400 in spring training. He hits. I mean, he's a great player to teach. He's a great learner. He's really starting to take in the game. He's learning every day. You can even see him throughout the spring training. He just progresses better and better. He learns the little things about the game, plays well very fundamentally, and I just really think he's ripe for, I think he has the potential to hit over 300. He could hit 10 to 20 home runs. I'm in love with Jackie Bradley Jr. at this point. Now over in the NL, this one's a little bit tougher. A few guys I really wanted to give it to Matt Harvey, but I'm pretty sure his rookie status is also gone after he pitched. He pitched a few starts last year. He was like 3-5. So anyway, I think because of Matt Harvey just not being there, this is a little bit more of an open race. I do think Tyler Skaggs has the potential to win it because he is, the type of guy that might just finally, if he can get starts, if he can get innings pitched, he can really perform. But I really think that I'm pretty sure he still has rookie status. Julio Teheran, he's looked really good in spring training, I've heard. He'll likely, if Mike Minor or Paul Maholm starts to struggle, Teheran will fill in, right then and there for him. And I really think Teheran has a great chance at having a breakout rookie season. But if not, I really can't think of anyone else off the top of my head.
You could put Oscar Tavares in there.
Yeah, Oscar Tavares too, with the injuries that have kind of gone out to the Royals. Not the Royals, the Cardinals. And the Cardinals are an old team, so if a guy like Carlos Beltran goes down, with some soreness in his back or something, which is typical of an old type of player, Tavares is going to be right there. So yeah, I really do think Tavares has a good shot as well. It's a good name. I also think Starling Marte too. He's going to get at bats in that Pirates team. And I think that he showed potential last year. He had 167 at bats. Actually, I'm not really too sure if he is still a rookie, but overall, I think I'll take Julio Teheran for the NL.
All right, so we're gonna go to the comeback players of the year.
Sure.
All right, so with the NL, I couldn't really think of anyone. So, if Ted Lilly is coming back this year, I'm not sure if he is, but I picked Ted Lilly, but I really had no idea of any significant players that are coming back this year in the NL. But for the AL, I have John Lackey or Ryan Madson. I think John Lackey, with how much weight he's cut, and then I don't know how he's looking in spring training, but if he makes his roster, which I assume he is.
Oh yeah, he's got a huge contract. He's making the roster.
Yeah, I figured. So, yeah, assuming if he's gonna play this year or if he's gonna play well this year, I think he can make it. I also think Ryan Madson, coming off of Tommy John surgery with the Reds.
He's on the Angels, is he?
Angels,
this year? Yeah.
Angels, right?
Yeah, he's on the Angels. He was with the Reds.
Yeah. So, yeah, Ryan Madson with the Angels. Yeah, I was wondering. I was like, wait, is he AL or NL? I got a little confused. But yeah, I think Ryan Madson, coming off of Tommy John surgery, can get it this year as well. So.
All right. For my AL, I think this is one of the better races, at least better than the NL. Out of the AL, I'm gonna have to take Victor Martinez in this. Coming off of, I can't 100% remember what exactly his injury was last year, but he
ACL.
did miss. Oh yeah, that's what I figured. So I guess he tore his ACL, missed all of last year. He's gonna have a ton of protection in this lineup with Fielder and Miggy. He's the type of guy that could hit over 300, knocking 100 RBI. I really have high hopes for Victor Martinez this year. But I think that if Mariano Rivera can come back and he can even just have a decent year, I think that voters will almost be inclined to give it to him in his last season, because almost like as a farewell, kind of treatment to probably the game's best closer of all time. So I think if Mariano Rivera can come back and he can have a good year, then certainly I'd give it to Rivera. Just because I think voters almost be inclined to give it to him, quite frankly. Out of the NL, I kind of agree with you. This is not really, it's hard to predict this type of award. But I guess honestly, I really can't think of anyone. who I would really give it to. I mean, maybe it's the type of award that you have to think of a guy who was hurt and comes back, and maybe Brandon Beachy. I mean, he still played like half of last year before he went down, and he had a 2 ERA. So like if he can just come back and continue what he was doing, then I think he has a great shot at it. But other than that, I really just there isn't anyone I can really think of off the top of my head that can win this type of award. Maybe Jason Worth. He was out most of last year, but he had 300 in the 300 at bats that he did get last year. So I guess I'll give it to either Brandon Beecher or Jason Worth. But there aren't many guys who are coming off of like season long injuries who really have the chance to win this award. So that's pretty much it for that.
Breakout players.
All right, this is one of my favorite parts of baseball, is thinking about breakout players and overrated guys. Do you want to start for this, or should I?
I'll go. So over in the NL, I have for breakout players, I think Dominic Brown is easily a really good candidate for this one. I think he's like the leader in home runs in spring training this year. I think he's hit 7, so he showed a lot of life this spring. So I'm gonna pick him. And I also have Cameron Maybin. I feel like this is his last season that he can either show that he can be a really good player, or he's just gonna just be an average guy. So I think if Cameron Maybin over with the Padres too, have a decent lineup with Chase Headley and Carlos Quinn. If he can hit really nice at the top of that lineup, he has a lot of speed and he's showed some pretty good power. I think he could potentially get a breakout player of the year. Over in the AL, I have Tommy Hanson or Carlos Santana from the Indians. I think Carlos Santana, just like Cameron Maybin. He was sort of like a top prospect. They called him up really early, and he's kind of struggled. He showed that he's having trouble adjusting to the major leagues. So I think Carlos Santana, if he can hit a bunch of home runs, because he does have a lot of power. If he can finally figure out some pitching this year, he can get AL breakout. And Tommy Hanson over with the Angels. I feel like if you've been a pretty good pitcher your whole career with the Braves, then you go over to the Angels, who have such a good lineup. If they can kind of propel his stats with his wins, maybe. He can kind of get a Breakout Player of the Year award. So,
all right. So for me, out of the NL, I'm gonna throw Brandon Beachy in this again because like I said, if he can kind of stay healthy, he obviously had a great start to last year before he went down for the year, and I just think that he has a very good chance of potentially having a career year. And I had one other name in mind, but I honestly can't think of it. I like what you said, though, about Cameron Maybin. He's the type of guy that, is kind of in probably the last year before people really start to give up on him. He's been a top prospect all of his life, but he just hasn't put it together yet. And, it'll be interesting to see if he can kind of put it together and just give it one last run. But out of the AL, I think Brett Anderson possibly is another guy who went down, came back towards the end of last year, and was really well. I think that if the A's contend again this year and Anderson can, duplicate what he did for his last, 6 or 7 starts last year when he had a 2.57 ERA, then I think, I think that Anderson has a great shot at being a breakout player of the year. I also think that Jason Vargas, I like what you said about Tommy Hanson, but I almost think that Jason Vargas even has a better shot. He's a guy that's gone under the radar, but has been one of the more consistent pitchers in baseball over the last 2 years or so. He's going to have a ton of run support this year, so his win total should go up. He's in the same division that he's played in for at least the last couple of years of his career. I can't think if he was anywhere before Seattle. So I think that he's going to be familiar with the division, familiar with his opponents, and I think that he is a very good shot at being a breakout player this year. I'm also going to throw Desmond Jennings in there. I think that Desmond Jennings can finally take that next step to being this 30 home run type of guy, this 5-tool player that everyone in Tampa Bay wants him to be. He's got about a year or so under his belt now. I think last year was his first full season, so I really think that Desmond Jennings is going to take the next step. And I think I'd take Desmond Jennings over Jason Vargas in this award this year.
All right, so we're gonna go to our final award. Not really an award, but it's the most overrated players. So I'll let you go first in this one.
All right, I'm just gonna choose the entire Boston Red Sox lineup. I'll start out with Shane Victorino. I'm doing this solely on the amount that these guys were paid. Shane Victorino is gonna not have a good year. Johnny Gomes not gonna have a good year. Mike Napoli really overrated. He hit 227 last year. He's a career. What's his career? His career is 259. Johnny Gomes is a career 257 or 227 hitter. The fact that these guys are all hyped up in Boston, it's like killing me. This team has like 80 win potential, but it's like I don't really see it. But in a more serious note, I think that you have a lot of candidates on the New York Yankees. I think CC Sabathia is going to struggle this year. I think that he's kind of started to tail off a little bit. He's certainly entering that stage when he's getting towards his mid-30s. 32 right now. He's getting towards his mid-30s. He's the type of guy that's not going to be great for too much longer with that body. I think he's really going to start to decline. He's not going to get the run support this year. He's playing in one of the tougher ballparks to pitch in the AL. So I think that CC Sabathia is going to struggle this year. I also think R.A. Dickey's going to struggle. I didn't like what I saw from him in the World Baseball Classic. I think that the adjustment from NL to AL is certainly one to take note of, and I think that overall, just I don't see R.A. Dickey, even coming near to what he did last year, quite frankly. And I think that people are expecting him to do at least something similar, but I really just don't see it, quite frankly. Other than that, I can't really think of anyone else in the AL, so I guess we'll move on to the NL for most overrated players. This is a tough one, I think, but it seems like people really still have hope in Carlos Marmol. I've never liked Carlos Marmol. He had a 3.42 ERA last year and did have 20 saves, but I think that they're probably going to try and deal him, the Cubs, I mean. And I think Jonathan Papelbon is another candidate for most overrated players. He had a decent year last year. Statistically ended up with 38 saves and a 2.44 ERA, but I think that he did what, to Philly fans, what he was known for doing, and to Boston fans is, if he's got a 2-run lead, he's going to load the bases and probably allow a run before he picks up that save because, he's just the type of guy that, I don't know what it is, it's something in him that makes him, it makes every, I can't think of the last time he's had a 1-2-3 save. And where he just, doesn't cause fans to have heart attacks in the process, quite frankly. I also think that Corey Hart is going to have a rough year in Milwaukee. I think coming off that knee injury, it's the second straight year he's come off of knee surgery, I'm pretty sure. So I think he's going to start to decline a little bit. It's good that he's over at first base. That will kind of take some of the pressure off of him. And but I just think that he's not going to he's not going to field well, and I think that's going to kind of affect him in the batter's box. Turning out that knee, I just really don't see Corey Hart duplicating what he did last year.
All right, so for my overrated players / teams, I had something similar to you. For AL overrated, I have the Indians, James Shields, R.A. Dickey, or Mike Morse. I think Mike Morse has been a little bit too overhyped just because he got traded. I think Mike Morse is a good player, but I think he's going to struggle in Seattle for whatever reason. So I'm picking him. I have the Indians just because the Indians are not good and no one should talk about them. James Shields, I think he's been a little bit too overhyped. I don't think he's an ace, and I don't think that there's any reason that he should be an ace over
He would be
Kansas
perfect
City.
if they had a guy who can he's a great innings eater number 2, but I don't think he's an ace. I agree with you. He would be great as a number 2 though. I really think he'd be the perfect number 2.
That's why he was good in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, because he was second right to David Price.
Yeah, and then I also have R.A. Dickey. I think just like you said, the adjustment from NL to AL is going to be too much. He's going to be facing much better hitters. So, and I agree with you. He hasn't showed his any good stuff in the World Baseball Classic, and I just don't think the knuckleball is going to be good this year. I think that last year, even though he's had consistently good ERAs, wasn't it ERAs that he's always had?
It dropped down the last couple of years. He had like a 3.2 ERA or something like that in 2011. But I mean, Tim Wakefield did the same thing in one of his last years in Boston when he was 11-3 at the All-Star break. And then the knuckleball is just such an inconsistent pitch. You can't rely on a guy like that, quite frankly. I would not want that guy being a potential ace for my team.
Yeah, that's how I feel with that. I mean, yeah, he did have a really good last year, but I just feel like he's a little bit overrated just because he has a knuckleball. Ooh, he's also 39. So. And then over in the NL, my overrated players are either the Upton brothers, Ian Desmond, or Edwin Jackson. I think either the Upton brothers are going to have awesome seasons. I think Justin Upton is actually really excited to play next to his brother, but I also feel like they might show what they were last season. I mean, they're both decent players, or last year they were decent players, and they do have really good potential still. But I feel like if they play like they were last season, they're going to be much overrated than what they're expected to do. I also have Ian Desmond. I think he had a really good year last year, but I think he might have a little bit of a struggle this season for whatever reason. And I also have Edwin Jackson because he signed a 4-year,
52 million,
52 something
total.
like that. So yeah, I feel like he's a little bit overrated, and he's playing in Chicago, so he might have a little bit of hype around him, but I think he's going to struggle this year. So, and he has been overrated for a lot of his career, even though I like Edwin Jackson, but He is a pretty good pitcher, but I think he's just going to be a little bit overrated this year from what he's expected to be. So
Yeah, I think that it's the situation where the Cubs are going to ask him to be more than I think what his capability is. And I really like what you said about the Upton brothers. I think that either the chemistry between them is going to propel them to the next level and make them both the players that everyone wants them to be, or it's going to bring them down. It's going to tear them down, and they're going to be even worse than. I mean, Justin Upton had such a letdown last year, and I think that B.J. Upton might even revert back to his old self of hitting 250 and hitting 15 to 20 home runs a year, quite frankly. So, I think that the chemistry factor between them is really what's going to decide how the Uptons do. There's also a lot of pressure on them this year. They're expected to be probably the two best bats in that lineup, aside from maybe Brian McCann. So there's a lot of pressure on those guys, and I think that it will be interesting to see how they fare this year. And I agree. It's the potential to be a huge letdown for them.
all right, so that looks like that's the end of our predictions and awards. So
All right, so let us know what you think, guys. Let us know who you think's gonna win the awards and make the playoffs and such, and let us know what you think. And yeah, do you have anything else to say?
nope. I think it's gonna be a great season, though. I think we're gonna have a lot of cool playoff predictions that might actually work, and we'll see if they can actually get there.
Yeah, I really think this is gonna be a good season. A lot of good teams. A lot of teams with the second wild card. It makes it a lot more interesting too. So, all right, that's pretty much gonna wrap up this edition of the MLB Season Preview Podcast, the last one. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you did enjoy. Anything else to say?
Thanks for sticking around with the series, guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed these long ass podcasts.
Yeah, hopefully. Thanks to the few people that actually watch them. And yeah, so anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you did enjoy. And as always, we're out. Peace.